Celebrity Book Club.
Hey, club kids. This is Lilibet here.
And this is Little Prince George. And I just wanted to let you guys know that this episode is so big, fat, and juicy. It's a two-parter.
It's in two parts. So, yeah, we're doing Spare. We're doing Prince. First episode, we're talking about brotherhood. We're talking about the crash. We're talking about death. We're talking about the first date at Soho House.
And next week, you'll hear all about
Kate and
more
Meghan
of the simmering
drama.
feud between Kate and Meghan and the feud between Willie and Harry. And we haven't
Afghanistan.
And Afghanistan, the Taliban.
Yeah, the Taliban.
And
so.
Harry's absolute lust for blood.
Trigger warning, Taliban.
Yeah. But enjoy this episode, part one of our dive into Prince Harry's best-selling memoir, Spare.
Who's that knocking at the door? It's all your friends, you filthy whore. Your husband's gone and we've got books and a bottle of wine to kill. It's Hollywood. It's books. It's gossip. I'm shook. It's memoirs. It's martinis. It's Studio 54. It's Celebrity Book Club. Come read it while it's hot. Celebrity Book Club. Tell your secrets, we won't talk. Celebrity Book Club. No boys are allowed. Celebrity Book Club. Say it loud and proud. Celebrity Book Club.
Buzz me in, I brought the Cuervo.
Hello, best friend.
I'm American. I noticed you have an accent today.
Yeah, I'm from England. I'm from actually your mother country, if you really think about it, because we started you. Even though you're a crazy, rambunctious, glamorous American, yet I'm somehow drawn to you in a weird way.
Hey, Stephen.
Hey, Lil.
You're wearing kind of a Harry Potter themed shirt today. I didn't know you were a Hufflepuff.
I'm actually more of a Ravenclaw, a bit more of an intellectual, and I fancy myself. But yeah, I am wearing a shirt that says Oxford University on it, and it is quite garish yellow colors.
Right, with purple.
Lil, sometimes in this podcast, I always say, when everyone else zigs, we like to zag, right?
Oh, yeah, we're alligators. When they say how to outrun an alligator, I was taught personally to run in a zigzag.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
yes.
To escape them.
Yes, that's also how you avoid getting shot at when you're in a battlefield. Say Afghanistan, for example.
Perhaps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But this is one of those instances where when everyone else zigs, we did have to zig. we
ultimately had to zig because, as you put it plainly, we were held at gunpoint.
Yes. I've never had so many requests, demands, really.
Yeah, just demands. It was like, it wasn't even like we were really allowed to do anything else.
No. And, I understand that we've been doing a podcast for about 2 years now where we read celebrity memoirs, and to not read what is
the most talked about book
ever.
Literally ever.
I just saw the fastest selling memoir in history. It would be a crime. We are better equipped to discuss this than anyone on earth.
Also, than we have ever had.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
than we've ever been.
Yeah,
our whole lives have been building up to this moment.
We have been training.
Yeah.
At Fort Gloucestershire.
At Fort Tilden.
Yeah. We read Spare. We had to. It's like.
Yeah.
And for a moment, I almost was like, okay, I feel like when all the Page Six, that first day, when all the Page Six stuff came out, the frostbite penis,
right,
the emails,
right,
the Kate, the this, and you were like,
don't you think you're like, well, it's all been said?
Yeah, I was like, I read the book.
Yeah. No, I felt like Jennifer Lawrence watching The Dropout and saying, you know what, I'm not going to make another show about Elizabeth Holmes because it's been done.
Seyfried did it.
And when I saw the clips about the Todger, about the frostbitten penis, I said, oh, God, what more can there be?
What more could there be? But there's so much more.
How wrong we were.
Because we didn't even really know exactly how the Todger got so frostbitten.
No, indeed. We didn't realize that it was on a trip to the North Pole. Okay, let's just say it right out. Spare by Prince Harry, first of all. For those of you who don't know.
Prince Harry, so he's actually the son of the Queen, and he grew up in England.
So he's actually not, he's the grandson of the Queen.
Already getting it wrong.
Okay, cool. Did you read the book?
Yeah, he's famously son of the... Well, trick question, because a trick answer, since, it's heavily rumored, which he addresses in the book, that he is not the son of
Charles. Yes. Well, and this is why I do kind of think I was going back and forth about whether or not he's the Chloe or the Courtney. Because I do kind of feel like he is the Chloe in the like paternity rumors.
Yes.
Where like he's the different one. And just like, why is he a redhead? It's a recessive gene. Like Charles is not a redhead. Diana's not a redhead.
And there's
Where's
like
that coming
a
from?
man that his mom was really close to that looks exactly like him.
Mm-hmm. She's been fucking the mailman.
And it's very, Chloe was like, well, actually, like my mom met OJ like
right around the same time, and like she got pregnant with Chloe. But then sometimes
he's
I'm
kind
like,
of the Courtney.
he's the Courtney because he's just like, I don't want to film anymore.
Yeah, and it's like, I never wanted this.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, I love my family.
And also, obviously, Meg
is the Travis Barker.
Well, but she's also so Courtney because she's so poosh, because she's so having the fakest lifestyle brand.
Yes.
Because remember when she had her brand, The Tig, which gets briefly referenced in this book, and he's like, she was in, when they first
he was like, she was an entrepreneur.
She was an entrepreneur, and she was an actress, and she had a lifestyle website, and she was a roving businesswoman and an activist. And the lifestyle website was this insanely fake like travel website called The Tig that would have like a blog post every month just being like, here's the 3 hotels that I like in Bali. And then she would sell like a handbag that said The Tig.
He literally said she was a travel writer.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
I mean, same.
I mean, we are also like travel writers.
But okay, let me say this.
Let's.
This book is, I will say it, very good. Like, I thought this book as a piece of literature was just incredibly compelling. Like J.R. Moringer, ghostwriter of Agassi's book, he is a genius. And he took what is obviously a dumb person, like, and made their words into like this incredibly compelling narrative about grief and family.
Monarchy.
Yes, and monarchy
Royalty.
and history. And I think like the
relationships, brotherhood.
And it's like it's juicy. And there's tons of dirt in it.
It's
like
so juicy. It really is crazy that
he completely puts everyone on blast.
He puts everyone on blast, including Courtney Cox.
Oh, yeah. I'm just being like, I'm tripping. I'm doing mushrooms at Courtney Cox's house in LA.
And he's like, I'm Chandler. She's Monica. Does she know I'm Chandler? And he's like in love with Meghan, but like also still trying to hook up with Courtney Cox because he's so obsessed with Friends.
Yeah, the Friends obsession. It's one of the many sort of Peter Pan like teen things where he just never stopped evolving after his mom's death.
Yes, but I also will say in his Friends' defense, like that is also like my comfort show.
Right.
And like I will also like go to the grocery store if I'm alone and like pick up a salmon
Pick up so many fillets.
fillets. And just like my favorite yogurt. And like just have Friends on the background and the episodes just roll together.
Yeah.
I think there are other things about him that I think that's just like being basic and millennial.
For sure. I mean, he is, the most millennial person there is.
But there are other things that are Peter Pan. I mean, the loss in this book, it's crazy also because it's like, I think why the loss is so strong because he was so young. Did you see Spencer?
No.
With Kristen Stewart.
Right.
I mean, I really guess that, because I didn't watch The Crown, that really like shook me, even though the movie was bad, I thought, of how bad they treated Diana.
One of the central themes of this book is the coldness of the royal family and of British culture. And, it sets up, the whole book is sort of setting up this culture clash that happens in part 3 when Meghan is introduced, where she is this ebullient American who comes...
And she says what she wants.
And she comes roaring in and she wants to hug Will and hug Kate, and they're just like, oh my God, they're aghast because like you only shake hands and curtsy, and even your family members, there's this anecdote where the Queen has been on like a tour of all the world in like the 50s or something, or maybe it was like the 70s at this point because she was more queen, and she comes back to see Charles and she like shakes his hand after she shakes her own son's hand after a 6-week tour of being gone.
It's insane. Also, just it really truly was our experience in London of just like no one is speaking before 5 p.m.
Yeah.
And then
it's a quiet, polite
it's
city.
And then Harry, like every sentence in this book is just him being like, and then we fixed up some bush cocktails around 5, and we fixed up a few gin and tonics.
He's
and
fixing a lot of cocktails in this
A lot
book.
of cocktails, and he's like, and then we started talking.
I actually thought that the book was heading for some sort of
Same,
like
sober
rehab,
moment,
and it just never does. And like by the end, he's still just being like, I had 3 more gin and tonics while I was in Botswana, and then
that's the most British part. They're just like, of course we drink.
Yeah.
The other most British waspy part of this is like him, how he hates fashion.
Oh, and yet he notices clothes like a who. He's constantly talking about people's outfits.
Yeah. And
his own outfits. And how he desperately wants to wear like this kit that comes from like one of their like home estate versus the like royal army
because he hates the
outfit or something.
He like loves his army clothes but also like hates his army clothes.
There's so many different like deviations of outfit
track.
and uniform and like different like heraldry like family crest. And like Will gets to wear, one of the huge points of contention later in the book is that Will didn't get to wear the uniform, the specific uniform he wanted at his own wedding.
And then Harry
did. Harry does get to. And Will like deeply resents him.
And then also Will gets so mad because the Queen lets Harry get married with a beard.
Okay, I will say, when I read that part, I was like, sorry, Will doesn't look good with a beard.
No.
Will just, his face does
and
not
Will
make...
is just, he is just so jealous that, like,
Yeah.
again, little brother is, like, getting away with something.
Right, and that's, like, this sort of eternal sibling dynamic between older brother, or older sibling, younger sibling. Babe, the Queen did you a favor, Willie. As Harry calls him, but Willie and Pa. Charles is Pa,
Willie and Pa,
and Will
yeah.
is Willie. And it's like, yeah, you would have looked terrible with a beard at your wedding.
It's also... both those boys, like, I feel like Will, like, literally did used to be, like, so hot with hair. And this is not an anti-bald sentiment. And I know things happen. But I just feel like it's not the hair. It's just, like, now he's just so basic. And before he was, like, hot preppy. And I feel like now he's just, like, corny, angry, basic.
He was preppy hot, but I agree. I think that hair was too integral a part of preppy hot. I think like that like thick kind of 80s rich person hair that Will had.
Total Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
Yeah, like that was, he was leaning too heavily on that. Mm-hmm. And he didn't cultivate any sort of like mystique beyond that. So when that goes away, you know, you lose a lot of that. Because a lot of it, you know, I mean, as the heir, part of your entire thing is projecting virility. You are literally a bloodline. Like that is all you are.
So hair gone.
When your hair is gone, you lose so much of that power because that connects you to the one thing you have.
Still has hair.
And he can still get it, sweetie.
That's also rough for a British person to be forced. So William had to wear the Irish coat of arms at his wedding, which was bright red. And he had like 3...
Yeah, with his very pale skin. It was not like...
And then like their bachelor party was basically just like him, Pa, and Harry having like rum.
Yeah. I mean, again, this is the whole thing where it's like he is the older brother. He is the serious one who has to become king one day. And so he doesn't get to let loose. But you know, so many sibling relationships, non-royal ones.
I was actually thinking...
share the same dynamic. I think the dynamics in this book that are the saddest are the dissolution of their friendship. By the end of the book, they don't speak.
And he said so at the beginning of the book. They also, like, it's, you know, kind of a flash. It's present day.
It's a flash forward to right after Philip's funeral. So the Queen's, like, 700-year-old husband. And they're right after his funeral, and they're at Frogmore.
Always at Frogmore.
Constantly at Frogmore. And this whole book is just listing different palaces, and it's just constantly Sandringham, Balmoral, Frogmore, Kensington, Clarence House.
I literally could not keep up. And he's like, Granny told me to meet her at Gloucestershire. Gloucestershire, I said? Yes, the Gloucestershire cottages. Oh, the Gloucestershire cottages are so beautiful in April when there's no leaves on the trees and I can go goose hunting. Oh, no, join me goose hunting in Quagmire. Oh, Quagishmeremeyer? It's like, okay, ladies.
No, it's really ladies. And you're just like, by the end, I just have this encyclopedia of different estates that belong to the Queen. And yet he's also always constantly kind of complaining his younger brother way about how he's being like shoved into the basement or the back back room or the servants'
They're always
quarters.
being like, I have nowhere to live. And it's like, it actually seems like you have a lot of options.
I'm getting a lot of different things. And like, he's just constantly complaining in this very young way of just being like, I get the short end of the stick. Like, no one cares about me because I'm the spare. I mean, the book is literally called Spare.
Gloucestershire cottage.
But, the sad thing about that dynamic is that, these little petty resentments build up. And I think a huge part of it is Will feeling the crushing burden of being the heir, of having to be Mr. Serious, in the same way the Queen did, in the same way Charles did. Because you look at all the other younger siblings. Margaret was like Miss
So Harry talks about how
messy.
he, like, the first time he had a proper martini was with Margaret.
Oh, yeah.
And she was like 300 years old or whatever. And it was like his rebellion. He realized, wait, I'm her.
That scene with Margaret where she gives him the biro. Do you know what a biro is?
No.
Okay, so this was like essential to the scene. I'm going to read this and then I'm going to tell you what a biro is. So they're at their Christmas dinner. So Princess Margaret, this is the Queen's younger sister who is like famously like the messiest bitch. She's played by Helena Bonham Carter in The Crown. She was like
she married who she
was not
married like a divorced man.
She wanted to marry this guy Captain Townsend who was like much older than her and divorced. I didn't know Princess Margaret, whom I called Aunt Margot. She was my great aunt. Yes, we shared 12.5% of our DNA. We spent the bigger holidays together, and yet she was almost a total stranger. So it's just like everyone like has a present like in front of them, and it's very like whatever, some ancient like German tradition. Standing before my pile, I chose to open the smallest present first. The tag said, "From Aunt Margot." I looked over, called out, "Thank you, Aunt Margot." "I do hope you like it, Harry." I tore off the paper. It was ... A biro? I said, "Oh, a biro. Wow." She said, "Yes, a biro." I said, "Thank you so much." But it wasn't just any biro, she pointed out. It had a tiny rubber fish wrapped around it. I said, "Oh, a fish biro. Okay." I told myself, that is cold-blooded.
Yeah, I remember listening to that part and being like, note to self, look up what that is, and then I never did.
So I asked my British friend.
Oh, okay.
And he informed me, a biro is, wait for it, a pen.
Oh.
Yeah, it's just like a cheap ballpoint pen. And so he's being like, Margaret's such a bitch for giving me a pen. And I'm kind of just like, you dumb asshole. It's just like, that's funny. It's like, you're literally a prince. Like, it's funny for her to give like
you this random
cheap pen. She's just being like, whatever, nothing matters. Like, you're literally the Prince of England. Go over yourself.
I'm not going to get you a Switch.
Right. Like, he's literally just being like, where's my Xbox? My stupid aunt didn't get me an Xbox. And it's just like,
oh, thanks, Aunt Margot. And she's like, yeah, bitch. Which is funny that he also was so annoyed by that, because then later on with the clothes things, like he prides himself on the waspiness of how he's like wore the brogues that, you know, he's wore the same pants for 90 years.
But it's also this poverty cosplay, how he goes to TK Maxx. And
well,
he's like,
the TK Maxx thing is...
the TK Maxx run where he like buys like as much as he can for £100 on sale and then like leaves.
And he says he hates clothes, but he's also obsessed with TK Maxx. And he's obsessed with the fact that they get fresh stuff from Gap and J. Crew.
Yeah, like this. So, it's like, okay, Ramona Singer with your like liquidation sales.
No, and he's like, no, the sales are unbelievable on designer names.
I feel like the poverty cosplay is, you know, him trying to show that he
is a man of the people.
Is a man of the people, obviously, and that's why he married just like Meg, this biracial American, you know, because he's not going to follow in the steps of the hoity-toity aristocracy.
Well, because there's the other way of going it, which is like Prince Charles, and I feel like I've seen like so many like fashion threads like zooming in on his like
tailored suits.
On his tailored suits, but showing that there's like tiny little patches.
Oh, and it's like
repaired.
Taking care of what you
take care of good clothes.
I think that it is part of what I actually perceive to be kind of a sexist, very old school point of view that is permeating this book, as woke as he desperately tries to be, because he's constantly being like, I love Meghan, I learned that colonialism is bad. It's like, and the diamond and grand's crown was stolen. Like, I think that it's like, he basically sees women as objects to be either protected or destroyed. The whole book is about Diana being killed by the press and how he needs to save Meghan from the press. And yet Aunt Margaret, who is like the perfect foil for him, she's literally a spare. She's literally like the ne'er-do-well younger sibling. He never sees his connection to her. He doesn't talk about her. He doesn't talk about women being role models at all.
He makes one sentence where he's like, oh, maybe I should have talked to her more.
Right. And it's like all you care about is the approval of Willie and Pa. And it's just like, and then like protecting these fragile flowers that are the women you know.
Well, and then he does this thing that also is really sexist, which I was say is where it's like it's like when men are annoyed by like girls saying like, it's like he gets annoyed by like girls who have like a lot of hair products.
Oh, yeah.
And he's like, when like he meet like...
Oh, wait, when Meghan meets Charles and he's like,
yes.
don't wear a lot of makeup.
Right, don't wear a lot of makeup.
Because Charles doesn't.
Well, no. When they go to Africa and she meets him for their like amazing Eat, Pray, Love date, which we'll really get into in Botswana. And he's like, she's unpacking. And he's literally ready to be annoyed at her and to be less into her for like... He thinks she's going to unpack like so many mirrors and like Glossier and so many outfits. And he goes, she unpacks yoga mat, cut off shorts, and like a pair of aviators. Like, how cool is that? Like, he's literally being like, guy's girl.
She's a guy's girl because she's being so like Kristen Cavallari and like expensive ripped jeans on Safari.
Literally, if you want to read this book, here's a drinking game. Drink every time he says Meghan is wearing ripped jeans. And it's like, she's wearing just like sevens.
She's wearing sevens. She's wearing strategically ripped jeans in every scene when they're at like that tennis game in Toronto. And he's like, and she was wearing ripped jeans
it was approved by the palace. No, I literally had in my notes.
You petty little bitch, shut the fuck up.
He literally thinks Meghan is like CBGB's, and she is CBGB's in like an airport CBGB's way, where she's wearing like a weathered soft bus CBGB's t-shirt, and he's like, it's like Kate and Meghan are meeting, and he's like, look at Kate, dressed to the nines.
Yeah.
Look at Meghan. In ripped jeans.
And he's like, you couldn't like, have a bigger dichotomy between two people. And it's just like, Kate is wearing just like whatever, this Max Mara dress. And then like Meghan is wearing like Max Mara jeans. It's like, I don't know if there's such a gulf between these two women, between these basic assholes.
And honestly, like Kate, I think, is actually even more, because I feel like the tabloids, which we hate, and like they're always complimenting her for like wearing the same like Pull&Bear thing twice, and how like she is more being a commoner because she wore the same Pull&Bear top
like,
twice.
She's like nodding to the recession by re-wearing her Pull&Bear long sleeve like polka dot print dress to go to Salinsworth to get fillets for dinner for her children.
And then it's like Meghan is just massive hat blog girl.
Yeah, I mean, she's just this yoga girl who's constantly going from brunch to brunch. But who cares about humanitarian interests, obviously, and has 18,000 lifestyle brands that she's constantly launching.
Celebrity Book Club.
Let's just talk about their first date. Let's get into it at Soho House.
The fact that she has a Soho House membership, that when they first date, she goes, I feel like I live here. Oh, no, she's not British. She goes, I feel like I live here. They always hold my luggage for me.
Popping it. Will you hold my luggage for me?
It's so him to be like, I finally met this real woman. Like, she's just normal. She's a Soho House membership.
Like, that's so cool. Because he's like, where will we date? He's like, you don't get it. You don't Google me, which is so cool that you don't Google me.
Okay, wait. So this part I actually found completely unbelievable with this whole concept of how she didn't know who he was when they first met, and she didn't Google him. And there's this moment.
The didn't Google him is so weird when he's like, oh, I'm doing something for my mother, and she's like, who? You're like, what?
Yeah. No, so like they are first meeting he's on her way to, I think they also had 2 dates in a row at Soho House, which is kind of insane.
Okay, so their first date, he was really late to, and he was like stuck in Piccadilly Circus, and he's like, she didn't understand because she was like so not even knowing how royal I was, like why I couldn't like get out and take the train, which reminded me of that scene in Sex and the City when Carrie is in a cab and she's like really late to something, and she like takes the train.
Oh no, it's
for the first time.
season 6 premiere to go to the ringing of the bell at Wall Street.
Yes.
She's like never been to like FIDI before. She's like, how do I get here?
And then she sees like the R train. She's like, whoa, I'm gonna take it. So he finally gets there. He's a half hour late, and he's like, she was so chill. Again, guy's girl. Again, what is Meghan order at their day at the Soho House? An IPA. Which he is like gobsmacked by. And he goes, so I also ordered. Then he's Peroni because he's so Heineken, so Peroni, so Wimbledon, so US Open.
So US Open. No, he gets a Peroni, like instead of his usual gin and tonic.
Right. And he's like, I didn't really want a beer, but it seemed like he wasn't going to get a G&T because that's like too British when she was there, like having a dogfish IPA.
Yeah, and he was just like, well, I still have to be fancy. And then they have this waiter with tattoos who comes up, and he's like, and then we asked her about her tattoos, and that kind of let us like have something to talk about while we like got over the initial hump of awkwardness because we'd already like
yeah, he was being like,
texting.
she was being such an epic like waitress too for like like making our date more fun.
Yeah, it's a little bit like, okay, it was a little touch and go. It can be difficult for straight people. I mean,
then he says, I mean, this is one of the common things we always say about straight people where like they literally just speak and like think they know each other so well.
Yeah.
Where he says, we had everything in common, even though she was a TV travel blogger and I was a prince and I had my parents and, you know, I lost my parents and she didn't lose my parents, but like we had everything in common. It's like, what did you have in common?
their values,
Just values. And it's them being like,
their love of Africa and elephants.
And yeah, and pumas and lions
and conservation. And charity work and travel.
Do you think they had gotten into like rhinos and poaching?
I think that was their first conversation over DM was literally about rhinos and poaching.
Because she saw the feed.
The feed.
The feed.
As she talks about
right.
in the Netflix special, she's like, when I heard about him, the first thing I did was look at his Instagram feed because that's how you can really tell about a person. Not from
The
Googling them,
feed.
but their feed. So they're first meeting up, but they're talking on the phone, and he's like, oh, I'm in the car. And she goes, doing what? Something for my mum. Your mum? Where? Althorpe. What's Althorpe? Where my Uncle Charles lived. He's talking about like going to Diana's grave, and she's just being like, wait, where's your mom?
Yeah, no, she's being like, oh, that's awesome. Like, what errands do you have to do for your mom?
It's like, I will not believe for a second that she doesn't know who Princess Diana is. Are you kidding? And then a little bit later, so she meets the Queen for the first time, and Prince Andrew is there. Who, by the way, there's only one sentence about Prince Andrew later in the book when he's like, he was kind of in a scandal for allegedly sexually abusing a young girl. So it was kind of weird. Anyway.
Moving on. It's like, oh, you're going to talk about how much you like hate the press of this entire book, but then also just like, I don't know if you're so charity.
You know, he's not making it about himself.
Look,
or, you know, or not making, you know, it's about him.
Andrew.
It's not about Andrew. So Meg does not recognize Andrew and thinks he's one of the Queen's assistants.
She was like, oh, who was your like, the Queen's like old assistant.
Because that man holding the purse, that man who walked her to the door, that wasn't her assistant. Who was it? That was her second son, Andrew. She definitely hadn't Googled us. It's like, I can maybe think that she wouldn't recognize Andrew, whatever, she's like American. But it's like the idea that she doesn't know who Diana is.
I think he's saying like she doesn't know where Diana's grave is, but I also think Meghan is trying so hard at this point to act like she doesn't care that she's like dating the prince.
I think that's what it is. And
it's like, you know, I do this too. When someone reveals gossip to you that you already know.
Yeah, you can't act too thirsty for it. Otherwise, they're not going to give you more.
Yeah, so you're like, oh my God, wait, what happened? I heard like something, but...
Yeah. No, or it's even,
she's...
you know, when someone has like some really insane like traumatic injury or scar and you're like, oh, I didn't even notice. Oh, how did you get that huge gash across your face? I didn't even see it until you said it. I do feel like it's also maybe her kind of indulging his performance of anonymity a little bit. Like, you know, she realizes,
wants him to, she knows it's hard.
And she wants him to feel comfortable with this whole...
I'm sure also her best friends, like what's her best friends? Silver Tree, like her Cavalry Squad, I'm sure they are like in there. What do you think their group chat is called?
Toronto. Do you think it's like Toronto Biddies? No, it's not that.
It's not Toronto Biddies. It's definitely more like, I feel like it could be like a corner in Toronto where they like all I got drunk ones, like like the Kavanaugh corner girls or something like that.
Okay, wait, no, it's more like not even the Kavanaugh Corner Girls. It's just like their favorite English class that they all took, like at uni.
I don't think they're that nerdy.
She's a fucking loser.
Okay.
One thing I found insane about this book is how many people are apparently fans of Suits.
Best line of the book. When William and Kate told Megs that they were massive fans of Suits.
When they have their like first meeting, because they're constantly just being like, so I phoned like Willie's secretary and like asked him if I could walk across the courtyard to his
like,
house at Kensington Palace so we could all have tea and like I could introduce him to my own
and then we
girlfriend.
did have tea and then we did mix up some drinks and then we did like sit in the front room Balmoral cottage and we had like all did have a laugh.
They're big fans of Suits. Like, she's in the Supergirl at one point. Like, some guy's like, I'm a fan of Suits. Just like, there's.
Well, no, that was.
Oh, that was the guy who was faking it.
Yes.
When she was on her heroin run to Whole Foods.
and like, it's revealed in this slow thing. Like, it's. I mean, at that point, I was like, this is a horror movie. I was like, really getting into the press, kind of like, it was inching where this guy is like, my girlfriend loves Suits. And then he's like, can I get a photo for my mom? And she's like, I thought you said your girlfriend was the one who loves Suits.
Yeah.
And it's like, and then it's like, she got her avocados and ran out.
She got her avocados and ran. And then she came back to Clarence's house. And then and after she told him this harrowing story of like some guy like trying to get her picture at Whole Foods. And then she's like, and then she still made a delicious avocado salad.
Yeah.
And he's like, you still cooked after all that.
And she goes, I wanted to feed you before you
Oh,
left.
God.
I was like, oh, okay. Another cooking moment that I was like, Prince Harry, toxic.
When she teaches him how to make roast chicken?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they're at one of the, at this point, Gran has given them, I think it's the Frogmore cottage, and she comes over and, you know, they're engaged.
Wait, it's actually Nottingham Cottage. Sorry, they're not at Frogmore Cottage yet.
They're
at
at
a separate cottage within Kensington
So he's
Palace.
being like, so Prince, and being like, my favorite meal is roast chicken, but I didn't know how to make it.
The absolute like imbecility of this man. He is so immature, and this whole book is just coursing with the. And you know, later towards the book, he kind of has this revelatory moment where he's like, "Of course, I'm immature. Like, I was never allowed to like have any independence or grow up, and I was, you know, I'm in prison." And it's like that is half true, but it's also your own choice to like play Xbox until you're 29 and
with
just
friends on in the background.
Yeah.
And like, but then it's also feels so, it's so wildly basic. And he's like, she taught me about folk.
Hold on.
And so.
Meg, I remember rubbing salt on the skin of the bird, then opening a bottle of wine. Meg put on music. She was expanding my horizons, teaching me about folk music and soul. James Taylor and Nina Simone.
It's like the most parent music ever. It's like, welcome to 1996 and my parents' 5-disc changer.
Literally her just being like, I'm going to play a really cool artist. She's called Nina Simone. Well, we make chicken.
Have you had roast chicken?
Have you had roast chicken and Nina Simone before?
And then she's like, have you ever heard of this California 70s artist? And it's just like, how sweet it is to be loved by you. And you know what? He's probably behind her and they hugging her from behind and they're both rubbing the salt on the bed.
On this bed, baby.
And she's like,
rubbing a bed with your bed.
Yeah, baby. Yeah. And she's like, you have to wash your hands. And then he's like, maybe it was the wine. Maybe it was the stressful week. And it's so, and then he like flips out and like they get in a big fight. And she says, I don't know who taught you to talk to women that way, but you will never, not in this cottage, talk to women like that.
And he doesn't actually say what he says to her.
No, I'm sure he's just like, shh. Like, was he like, shut up? Was he just like, oh, Meg, that's bollocks.
Bollocks. That's absolutely bollocks, you right trifling trifle. Yeah, I'm not quite sure. But she just like calmly sits on her bed and is like,
She goes upstairs and
Yes.
he's like, Well, again, this is so movie to like leave, and he's like, it's like in the movie, it's like 20 minutes later.
There's a lot of rooms in this book. There's always another room to go into.
And he's
because
like,
they're
hey,
always in a house
can
of
we
100
talk?
rooms.
What happened down there? It just feels making roast chicken, listening to Nina Simone. It actually reminds me of that movie, I Love You, Man, with Paul Rudd.
That I haven't seen. You know I hate Paul Rudd.
Yeah, well, him
I'm sure
and-
Harry loves him.
Yeah, I'm sure he loved the
Did
movie.
you see him thank James Corden in the acknowledgements?
Okay, wait. P.S. Back to him and Meghan's first date. So after he's like so excited about their first date, he goes over to his mate's house and they watch that animated film. Was it Inside Out? Ups and Downs?
Inside Out.
Inside Out.
They
I've
literally, and
never-
she calls him, she FaceTimes him after the first date, and he's at his mate's house, wasted, watching Inside Out. It's like, you child.
And she's like,
You
what's that? And he's like, oh, it's a cartoon. And he's like, I was on he like also discovers tequila because he's so freshman year when he goes to LA.
And he attributes it to like be this American liquor. He's like, I'm so used to gin and
so
Peroni.
British, and Peroni.
And finally, like tequila loosened me up at
It's
Courtney Cox's
California.
house. And, like,
Monica's house.
And the bathroom was so modern.
He's like so obsessed with just like seeing like, I mean, I guess one would be if you literally lived at Buckingham Palace.
He's from like the dustiest like castles, and he's only ever been in just like this tiniest, like most medieval like warrens of like rooms and like velvet couches.
Where that is the craziest part, because like that I'm always shocked by when they talk about like William too, and they're like their apartment at Cambridge when everyone just has apartments, and I'm like, why doesn't each person have a castle?
Well, this is the thing about British like interiors is like they're still cluttered, even when they're like big and
books
roaming.
And curtains.
There's
and
just
rugs
this is
and
the problem of
pillows.
being a nation of so much history is there's shit everywhere. Where, America, a land with no history,
America?
we've got
Yeah.
these big empty-ass houses. And so he goes to California, he's like, oh my God, I feel so, like, free
When
here.
he's
because...
like never seen a glass coffee table before.
Right. And, like, Tyler Perry's, like, massive-ass house with just, like, so
Gardens.
many empty-ass sitting rooms and gardens.
And like huge couch. It's also the first time he probably has like sat on a comfortable couch.
Right, and not just like this weird, like overstuffed, like but like weirdly,
Hard.
it's like
Lumpy.
It's so like lumpy and hard and sinky at the same time.
And everything also
Or,
must
like,
be
all
like
British couches.
covered in corgi fur.
Yeah,
I get also the vibe that like he was never allowed to pet the corgis. He's like, I've always wanted a dog because of course
when
like
he like adopts like Meghan's like dogs who are traumatized by the paparazzi.
And he's been like, and I would just lick Meg's dog like so much because like anything she loved, like I loved as much. And he was being so like the stepfather who stepped up about it. And you're just like, this is an ugly dog. But I feel like he's like, I've always wanted a dog. And it's like, even though he names the corgis at one point and he's like, Susan, Trevor, Dalton.
Dalton, Haversham, Cragmire.
It is so crazy to me towards the end of this book when, like, basically he's, like, becoming an unroyal to literally be, like, ditched by your grandmother. Like, that is crazy. And my heart goes out to him. To be on the phone with your gran and be like, can we have lunch? And she's like, sure. And then, like, she doesn't show up. And you're like, hey, gran, I thought we were having lunch. And she's like, ooh,
she's
I'm
like,
busy.
actually, I got super busy. She was like, sorry, I misscheduled. And she's
Yeah.
being like, actually, don't come to Sandringham.
My iCal is like crazy, and I switched over to like the cloud, and like
I thought the best literary device in this book is the loss of his mother, which the book starts out with. After the flash forward, it goes to the day he finds out, and Charles comes into his bedroom, and there's lots of descriptions of, I mean, there's so many descriptions of interiors in this book, but Charles comes in his bedroom and he's tucked under the sheets, and it's like the early light of morning. It's like 5 a.m, and Charles comes in and he tells him that his mom was in a car accident. And he's just like, oh, but like, is she going to be okay? And Charles says, she didn't make it.
and then he just like puts like one hand
Yeah.
on his knee,
One hand on his knee.
and it's kind of like, sorry, chap.
And it's like this just incredibly like sad, like not emotionally
British.
fulfilling moment, and then he lies in bed awake for the next like 5 hours until all of it begins. And he cries that very first morning, and then he never cries ever again.
Wait,
or does he not even cry?
I don't know if he cries that day.
Well,
I thought he like cries again at the procession, or Will does, and it's like not allowed.
They're not allowed to cry.
Yeah,
and so
because you have to be like strong for the monarchy and for the people.
I mean, I remember seeing that footage, you know, when I was a kid of the funeral, and I remember the little card on the coffin that said "Mummy" that they had like given her, and it was so heartbreaking. And they had to parade in front of the whole world, and you know that was his ultimate trauma that he never recovers from. And then for the rest of the book, the whole like, first half of the book, he keeps referring to her death as a disappearance because he cannot accept that she's dead. And he has this fantasy that she has secretly gone off and started a new life somewhere. And like, that's what he's holding on to, that like, maybe she's alive, she's out there. And then there's this moment when he goes to Paris for the very first time, because he's never been to Paris where she famously died.
And he does the drive.
So
he makes his like bodyguards and stuff do the tunnel.
Drive through the tunnel where she was killed.
And he goes, and they drive through it, and he goes, and he realizes like it was just like a really simple tunnel.
And he makes them drive at the exact speed she was driving at when she was killed.
And then he's like, let's do it again. And then like they do it like 5 times, and it's so dark.
That was so chilling. And you know, when he first goes through and he's like, you know, it just didn't seem that crazy. And like part of it makes him think that no, like there is something suspicious here. Like, why would you just die going at this normal speed through this normal tunnel? And then, you know, I think it also helps him find some little bit of closure that later he starts to get a little bit more of, and he finally cries like 5 years after that. But it's really, really sad. And it's like, you know, it clearly stunted his growth in such a huge way. At the same time, when I do think about Diana's death, I'm a little like...
What are you going to say?
I'm just like, she's
you
being
don't believe
so...
it.
I mean...
It was an inside job.
I'm a little bit just like, when it's like... And because this is the whole theme of the book, is being like chased by the paparazzi.
Well,
and I'm just like...
did it, and they drove her.
They drove her, but I'm just like, do you have to be like escaping? Like, why not just drive at a normal pace?
Wow.
I'm not a Diana conspiracy theorist. I do just think it was a car accident. But I do think that there is a little bit of like this whole book is over dramatization of press coverage. I mean, by the end, he devolves into like insane paranoia where he's reading every single article and every single blog, and he's so incensed about it. And everyone is like, Harry, you need to calm down.
You need to simmer about the daily. Well, let's get into the press. Okay, I think that's a good place to leave. But I do think there is a way in which paparazzi on motorcycles can be so crazy, and just the driver was like spooked.
Yeah. There was, I think there
Have you ever been chased through a tunnel? Because it sounds like you haven't been chased. You're showing yourself as someone who hasn't been chased in a tunnel experience.
I mean, first of all, as someone who...
I've been chased through the Ted Williams tunnel many times. And I've also chased other people in the Ted Williams tunnel.
But it's like, at the end of the day, if you drove 10 miles an hour, they're still just going to like stop, like follow you slowly and photograph you. You know what I mean?
So more actually you're blaming on the driver not being a good driver.
I guess it's just this concept that we need to outrun the paparazzi. It's a little bit just like, what is the point?
But when you see those videos of cars shaking, you know, whether it's Britney or Diana.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying it's not invasive, but I also am saying it's just kind of like, you don't gain anything by trying to outrun them. And I also think that there's a perverse, you know, there's a saying in French. Tu me fuis, je suis.
Je sais,
tu te suis, je fuis. And it means flee me, I follow. I follow you, you flee. The celebrity who does the classic hand over the face, like running out of a restaurant into a car, that makes you that much more desirable for paps. But if you're Heidi Montag or like Christine Quinn from Selling Sunset, and you're calling the paparazzi, be like, I'm going to be leaving Whole Foods at 3:05 p.m. And then like you get there and you're smiling and waiting, and they get their one photo. They're kind of like, okay, we're good. Like, you want it too much. It's like,
yeah, but you can never compare Aubrey
can never
from
compare
like
Chrishell
Laguna, Chrishell to Diana. Okay.
I know, but I'm just feeling like maybe Diana needed to be a little bit more Chrishell and actually more wanting.
I think after years of like trying to be a little bit Chrishell, she like had to outrun. And we're gonna do some segments, and then we're gonna return to this in part two.
Part two. We have a lot more to discuss about Meghan Markle's relationship, about his relationship with the press,
about Will, about Kate, about Pop,
about the infamous scene where his penis gets frostbitten.
Yeah,
also, we have to talk about the fight scene between Will and Harry. We have to talk about
both weddings, Will's wedding,
literally both weddings, and then the insane
tailoring.
Confrontation between Kate and Meghan, and the
text.
wedding dress, and the lip gloss incident.
And by the way, I didn't even know, and we will get to this in part two, that the Kate and Meghan tests were about Charlotte's dress.
No, that's what's so insane.
It's about a baby's dress.
About it, and Kate's being just like, but this is where I also would love to have Kate's side because
no,
it's just
I know
like,
you know that's not how it happened.
I'm sure it's just kind
when
of
I heard that I was like, this
I'm sure
it's
the
not
texts
adding
were
up.
kind of normal.
Yeah.
And it was Meg being insane and like being so BPD, ADHD, and sobbing on the floor, being like, she's like upset about, and it was just Kate being like,
this dress is big, but
this dress is big, and Charlotte's crying, but also because he Kate being a bitch, where it's like you're complaining about your 4-year-old crying. That's what 4-year-olds do is they cry.
Why don't you go to Max Mara Kids and get Charlotte a new dress?
Right, and Megan's just being like, there's a tailor on premises. Standing by at Clarence's house.
Again, as I said, there's a tailor standing by. I'm going to say that to you next time you text me about a blazer.
It's like,
there's a tailor standing by in Ditmas.
Megan's
and
being
if you
so
need a blazer.
Because I think Kate is just being dry and British and just being like, the clothes don't fit.
Darling. Okay, we're getting into this in part two.
Okay, let's move on to segments about Harry and Meghan. In part two, we will do segments on different characters in the book.
Celebrity Book Club.
How does she live?
What does she wear?
What does she wear? What does she eat? So
obviously, Harry eats roast chicken.
Roast chicken. So he does list when he loves going to the grocery store and putting on a disguise, which is just any person's LA person's like disguise, which is just like hat and
sunglasses.
And sunglasses, a hoodie. It's like, okay, Leo. And he runs. Oh, this was so my high school. He runs through the grocery store. His favorite things to get are salmon and yogurt. And he knows the pathways of the grocery store. And then one day they change it. And he goes to like an attendant. And he goes, why did you change the grocery store? And he goes, we changed it so people spend more time here and spend money. And he goes, that's allowed?
Yeah,
that should be illegal. It's like capitalism.
Oh my God!
You're
just
literally
like,
a prince.
The prince. No, just the constant like.
He's been like, what? Candies at the front of the grocery store, so you buy it?
15-year-old who just read like a Howard Zinn PDF. Like my mind just got blown of Harry on every page of this. I'm just like, please get over thyself.
So he loves roast chicken. I just feel like they're like DoorDash sweet green.
Yeah, I mean, he's like,
I tip my DoorDash dasher 900%.
He's just incredibly millennial. Like he learns how to cook chicken at 30. He buys like prepackaged shit. Like he loves avocados.
And like he's just getting into mezcal.
And I'm sure they're getting like one of those DTC brands for the dog.
That's
the
like
farmer's
fresh.
dog.
Yes, the farmer's dog, where it's like fresh, like
Fido's plate, organic turkey. Don't feed your dog anything you wouldn't give yourself.
And I'm sure like Lilibet is just like.
I'm sure she's getting
so
Jennifer Garner's like.
Jessica Alba's
farm
honest.
to table like goo for kids. That's called like the honest farmer or whatever.
Honest farmer.
And Meg is obsessed with salads. She's literally a California actress.
Salad. How do they live? I mean, now I think they're just so like.
They live in Tyler Perry's house with all of his cream colored.
Finally,
they found their own place in
and
in
he's
Montecito.
He's
or Santa Barbara.
We got a mortgage.
Yeah.
We got a house. We put roots down.
I'm sure it's just so
I'm
fucking
sure they
Instagram and like Taylor Perry's house to a T. And there's like cream sofas everywhere and like a kind of wrought iron hanging chandelier.
I also feel like
big candles. They have the widest candles.
Oh, well, do you remember when he
when he proposes
brings,
and he has the little electric candles?
Yeah, and then he brings those same electric candles
to
to the
birth.
hospital, to
Yeah.
the birth of Archie.
And I mean, this is also him being so basic and just being like, that's our thing. Is
Candles.
those little like
Yeah, he's like, our thing is candles, roast chicken.
those like battery powered tea lights that literally like, everyone has and like are in every bodega. Like
He would flip his ass if he went into a bodega.
I mean, this is like just very like obviously you have the most sheltered existence, but you're just like blown away by anything anyone does.
I feel like Meghan, too late, bought from Crate and Barrel, probably like Design Within Reach, one of those like polar bear style sofas, but the bouclés, but like got it like a little too late, where like everyone has one now.
The polar bear style. Is it like really deep?
Yeah, it's like Kim has. I feel like Kim was the first.
Is
one
it like
to really
the cloud
popular.
couch that like Kendall's being like, yeah, I know everyone has a cloud. I have a cloud too. I kind of think it's just a little bit more CB2 and it's just like very clean.
I mean,
and cream.
These are sold. This like I'm sure it's like that white.
Oh yeah, it's like a little bit slimmer on the sides,
right? Or
it's
they have like
very
a curved
CB2.
one. Yeah, so there's CB2 Design Within Reach again, like. Glass tables, light wood.
Yeah, I mean, it's very like
succulents.
because the thing is, his style when he's living at Knotcott, when he has this like basement apartment that he's always like disparaging, is very IKEA. Hello, remember when they buy the sofa on sofa.com? Do you remember this scene? That was mind blowing to me.
He's like, I bought a sofa from sofa.com. Style-wise...
Well, he's complaining how, like, how Will and Kate, like, really did an amazing job. So they're going to Willie and Kate's house right after they finish renovating it. The wallpaper, the crown molding, the walnut bookshelves lined with the color-coordinated volumes, the priceless art, gorgeous, like a museum. And we both told them so. We complimented them lavishly on their renovation, though we also thought sheepishly of our IKEA lamps, our discount sofa recently bought on sale with Meg's credit card from sofa.com.
He's always referring to Meg's personal credit card.
Yeah, well, I think he's just jealous because she has a credit card.
He
and
has one.
Literally has
he
like,
has to ask his dad.
He actually has like a Visa bucks, like
He's always like,
stored value card that's just like Prince Charles
Pa
bucks.
held the bank strings or whatever, and it's like it literally is Prince bucks, and he's being like, "Can I get $100 from my Prince account?" And they're being like, "You actually have to get it from."
I mean, when they are being obviously, it's like the whole family is being so weird about Meg, and Charles is being like, I don't know, Willie, like, or I don't know, Harry, like, it's just going to be a lot of money with Meghan coming into the family. Like, my budget's already stretched a bit thin with Will
Camilla.
and Kate and Camilla and then their new kids. And then he's just been like, well, like, she won't eat that much.
It's very like, she'll just have a salad. She's super low key.
But it's also just like, yeah, people are making bitchy comments. Ultimately, you all have millions at your disposal.
Right, when he's just like, oh.
We'll all be fine.
And he's always just being like, I love work. Okay, we'll get more into that in part 2. Style-wise, he now just only wears heathered gray t-shirts that say Girl Dad on them.
Yeah. He's just an amazing, awesome dad boss.
Awesome Girl Dad boss. She is aviators to the boots. Big Ray-Ban aviators.
Again, all the neutrals. She's obsessed with like neutrals and creams and like grays. I mean, she's like the same color as their interior. It's just like creams and grays and
off
blues and off blues and like skinny pants and then occasionally wide leg pants.
I actually feel like I've rarely seen her in a wide leg.
I feel like was so doing like high-waisted like,
in, like
big pants in such a 2017 way.
I'm sure she was. I guess I've been just so enamored with her skinny, ripped
Yeah,
jeans.
you're just thinking about all of her skinny, ripped, like more Real Housewives style. And then, you know, the part, also one of the things that they were mad about was that like Kate offered her stylist.
Oh, and Meghan said.
And Meghan was just like, I actually have my own stylist, so
From
that's
Suits,
okay.
yeah.
From Suits. And like Kate was offended that Meghan didn't want her, as he called it, fashion contacts.
And Kate had all these fashion contacts she had built. Well, they're also so like, and celebrating like European British designers.
Yeah, and it's like Meghan wasn't like celebrating enough of just like whatever, like Stella McCartney, and it's like I don't know who else there is to celebrate. How many times? I guess Vivienne Westwood, but like Kate's not wearing Vivienne Westwood.
Vivienne Westwood.
I mean, neither
at
is
all.
Meghan. Their basic asses are not
No.
wearing. Okay. Who are you in the
book?
first half of the book? I would like to think I'm remember we talks about a page 3 girl?
Oh, page. Yeah, and he's like, and they always thought I dated page 3 girls, and that's
Which
also
is like
him
their
again, like
version of like page 6.
being like I'm protecting women because he's like page 3 girls like are considered like sluts and prostitutes and just like how dare they call these girls page 3 girls? So you're a page 3 girl.
Absolutely, I'm a page 3 girl.
You're a page 3 girl, and honestly, yeah, I'll say it. I'm Harry freaking the fuck out that I'm at Monica's house.
Yeah, you are.
I'm
You're
just like I'm in.
oh my God, I'm in her bathroom.
He's also at this point where he goes. She comes back, and at first I thought he was gonna be really mad because like she was trying to get photos of him, but he's just like so freaked out because now he's so nervous that he has to like hang out with Monica, and he's just like. Now Monica's here. I thought she was going to be away, but now she's here. And now I'm drinking tequila with a dash of soda in line with Monica. So yeah, and I'm like in the bathroom being like tripping by accident. Being like, I'm at Monica's house.
I mean, that is an absolute dream.
Yeah. I'm going to die to hang out with Courtney Cox.
Okay. Also, look at the page 2 girl. He goes, one night I met a girl, chatted with her over drinks. I didn't know she was a page 3 girl. I wouldn't have cared if I'd known. She seemed smart and fun. Just being like, no, she was a page 3 girl.
Yeah, but
just
it's
being like,
literally cool.
Her being like,
I'm down.
her ass was a hoe, but like, I didn't care.
I didn't care. Like, I'm so down with commoner sluts. It's fine.
No, literally. And again, it's like later in the book when he's just being like, it was like so awful, like all the things that they were saying about Meghan.
They were like calling her a whore.
She was calling her a whore and
a
she's from
con
Compton
man.
and like she's poor. And it's kind of just like, well, actually,
You're mad.
you're mad that they're saying that because you think those are bad things.
Yeah, call him out and call him in.
Okay, we'll call him out and in. All right, listen, we have so much more to
much more
discuss
to talk
in
about.
round 2.
We'll see you in round 2, bitches. I'm sure by then this book will still be in the headlines. Oh, you know what I'm thinking about? You know how like every thrift store now has Are You There vodka? It's me, Chelsea. What year will now just like every Savers
have a spare?
And like actually it's a little more like Palin way. I feel like 10 years we're gonna start seeing spares.
I agree. That's when because the round of people who bought this will be doing their big moves in about 10 years.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people who bought this like probably just bought. They're like sort of what's the word? Geriatric millennials who like just bought a house.
Oh, their house in
for
like greater Portland.
Yeah. And so they'll be moving in 10 years and they'll be getting rid of some stuff and they'll be getting rid of spare.
Like we're actually moving to even more greater Portland.
So yeah, if you want to get this book for cheap, wait 10 years. And go to Salvation Army.
Good investment. Thrift. Okay, best.
Celebrity Book Club is presented by Prolong Projects of Adelaide College. The show is produced by Benjamin Frisch of Windsor Castle, with editorial support from Leon Nafak of Frogmore, Andrew Parsons of Bagshot Park, Arlene O'Revelo of Sandringham House, and Madeline Kaplan of Balmoral. Our production manager is Persia Verlin of Buckinghamshire. Original theme song by Stephen Phillips Horst of Highgrove. Artwork by Teddy Blanks at Chips Frogmore. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at CBT The Pod. Subscribe on your favourite podcast app, whether it's Tamarisk House, Anma Hall, or Holyrood Palace. And don't forget to tell your mates about us. And don't also forget to go to patreon.com for access to our VIP lounge, an exclusive bonus podcast released every Friday. That is one of the easiest ways to enrich your cultural faculties. I hope you're well and have a good weekend.